Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the press. We are here to address the war on Nigeria and the Trojan horse that permitted it. We bring your attention to the sad but passionate testimonies of state governors, Nigeria's lawmakers, the general public, and more recently the crocodile tears of the Chief of Army Staff, all decrying the organized and intentional, widespread, unmitigated social hostilities in Nigeria. The Pew Research Center 2018 report on Global Social Hostilities Index puts Nigeria in the highest possible category. Nigeria is fourth in rank behind India, Syria, and Iraq, and ahead of Egypt, Palestine, Israel, Bangladesh, and Russia. Comparatively, it may surprise you that countries like Sudan, South Sudan, and Iran, including countries who are major sponsors of global terrorism, all fall in the moderate category of social hostilities. The evidence for Nigeria's position on the Global Hostility Index might be attributed to at least 8 observations. There may be more. These include Nigeria's widespread insecurity related to indiscriminate armed robbery and banditry. Also, kidnapping and hostage-taking with bold demand for and the successful payment of ransom. Thirdly, extreme terrorist violence against human lives, communities, and their main livelihood by Boko Haram and Mieti Allah Cattle Breeders Association of Nigeria, MACBAN. 4. Religiously motivated killings of Christians and other minorities. 5. The incessant terrorist attacks, sacking, capturing, and emptying of Nigerian Army armory, vehicles, and military hardware. 6. The clear public experience of massive social disruption and human displacement, of which there are more than 2 million internally displaced persons. Number 7, the absolute destruction of Nigeria's economy and infrastructures. And number 8, but not the last and the least, the unprecedented high human misery index, as exemplified by police killings, harassment, and brutality. Make no mistake about it, Nigeria is at war. My 2 questions then are, how is Nigeria handling this war? And secondly, how did Nigeria get here? As to how Nigeria is handling the war, the straightforward answer is that the federal government of Nigeria, which is constitutionally mandated with the primary responsibility of security and welfare of its citizens, may actually be engaging in the politics of acceptance, accommodation, avoidance, and inadvertently the advancement of terrorism. This can be exemplified by the following. 1. The Kaduna State and now the federal government of Nigeria's offer of negotiated monetary settlement for herdsmen Islamist militia terrorists to the tune of hundreds of billions of naira, thereby indirectly promoting terrorism and the war against Nigeria. Number 2, President Muhammadu Buhari's playing the Roman emperor who played the fiddle while Rome burnt. He is almost never around, but abroad on medical tourism at seasons of Islamist Jihadist terrorists' greatest unleashing of their onslaughts. 3. The refusal by the federal government to label the widespread acts of kidnapping for ransom armed banditry and robbery as terrorism and the perpetrators as terrorists, but merely calling them criminals. 4. The deliberate weakening of the armed forces by internally compromising Nigeria's anti-terrorism intelligence. And number 5, the stage managing of Nigeria's military garrison overrun by terrorists in what could be described as secret arms transfer deals. Now to the second question, how did Nigeria get here? For the purpose of brevity, we shall make 6 quick points. Islamic jihadism in Nigeria is nothing new. It should be stated categorically here and with emphasis that although there is now an unprecedented escalation of Islamist jihadist terrorism in Nigeria, this is nothing new. The unfortunate phenomenon of Islamist jihadist terrorism has lived with and outlasted several administrations, regardless of the religion or ethnicity of the civilian president in power. What then might be facilitating the boldness of Nigeria's Islamist jihadist terrorism brings us to the second point of how we got here. The Nigerian Constitution of 1999 is the Trojan horse that led in Islamism and terrorist jihadism. The Nigeria's 1999 Constitution, through which Islamism and by extension radical jihadist terrorism crept upon Nigeria. The dual coexistence of both the secular and Sharia provisions within the same constitution is highly diabolical and disingenuous. The constitution, which ought to provide the essential, existential, and functional framework for Nigeria's ethnically and religiously diverse population, has been craftily formulated for bias in favor of Islam and to the detriment of other faiths. For example, Chapter 4, Section 10 of the 1999 Constitution expresses the intention of a secular state for Nigeria. However, the same Constitution, as per Chapter 7, Section 275, subsection 1, and 276, subsection 1, provides states with the choice of adopting or not a Sharia judicial system. Furthermore, and in spite of intended secularism, this same Constitution permits the establishment of state Sharia courts of appeal to interpret and review all cases relating to Islamic common and customary laws of the entire country. This provision successfully integrated Sharia into Nigeria's judicial and legal system. Also, the Constitution permits the appointment of Grand Qadi and Qadis of the State Sharia Court of Appeal. And also, the same Constitution recognizes at the Federal Court of Appeal the Sharia legal system, and therefore it becomes a part of the unified court system in Nigeria under Section 6 and 244 of the Constitution. Same Constitution allows the abridgment of the constitutional provision in Chapter 4, Section 38, which makes provision for individual freedom of religion. So, the third point that we make here is the admixture of the Nigerian secular constitution with Sharia. In 1999, the push by the then Zamfara state governor started the uncharted adventure of the statewide incursion of Sharia into all levels and branches of the state government. The state government allowed the implementation of Sharia to extend beyond its adjudicatory constitutional provisions. Secular structures such as the area customary court systems were scrapped and replaced by the Sharia system. Judges were appointed solely on the basis of being learned in Islamic personal and family law. Under such circumstances, non-Muslims, including Christians, continue to be denied access to free and fair legal relief, depicting clear discrimination in contrast to the spirit of Section 10 of the Constitution, which prohibits the endorsement of a state religion. Our fourth point, the implementation of Sharia draconian blasphemy and apostasy law. Sharia law allows the indiscriminate sentencing of anyone, non-Muslims included, convicted of blasphemy and apostasy against Islam or its prophets to be summarily executed by beheading. The fifth point that we make here is that the formation of religious affairs ministries commissioned by Sharia compliant states has in many states, especially of the Sahel North, implemented and was backed up by the creation of this commission and religious affairs ministries. And these to regulate religious affairs, including the preaching, distribution of licenses to imams, and the resolution of religious disputes. The same commission is to regulate the conduct of religious instructions in schools. This provision is contrary to Section 38, subsection 2 of the 1999 Constitution. Now, the sixth point we make is the attempt to obliterate non-Muslim religions. Sharia-based regulations in Sharia compliances have been used to strategically stifle the practice and growth of non-Muslim religions, especially Christianity. For example, the preventing the erection of Christian places of worship in the first instance, and also after they have been destroyed by terrorist attacks. In Katsina State, for example, violators of state building approval for churches are punished for up to 5 years imprisonment and a fine of up to 50,000 naira. So, we make certain observations as follows. Christians, Christians and other religious and ethnic minorities of the Sahel and Middle Belt Nigeria face extermination from terrorism, fear, disease, and hunger, orchestrated by Islamist jihadist terrorists, sometimes disguised as criminal robbers and bandits, as well as nomadic herdsmen. Second observation is that in significant regions of these locations, only but few places of worship other than mosques are standing, as many Christian parishioners have either been displaced, massacred, injured, maimed, and their pastors slaughtered. Thirdly, Christians, indigenous moderate Muslims, and other minorities in this area face a genocidal war which denies them of their rights to life and dignity. They see the federal government as being complicit in their genocide and therefore have lost the trust that they can either enjoy physical security or receive equal protection under the law. Islamist jihadist terrorists consider it a high obligation, a high and holy obligation, to fast-track the wholesale adoption of Sharia in the entire country of Nigeria, as well as the establishment of the Uthman Dan Fodio's vision of Islamic Caliphate expansionism in a war of attrition against Nigeria. a war which is fast extending beyond comprehension to all nooks and corners of the country, including the southern territories of Ogun, Osun, and Imo states. Islamist jihadist terrorists consisting of Boko Haram and the Mehdi Allah Cattle Breeder Association, also known as Nomadic Cattle Herdsmen Militia, and their foreign mercenaries are very, very, very well funded. They are well organized and trained. They mobilize to kill and drive indigenous peoples off their land in order to confiscate their farmland and yet to be mined mineral resources. And our sixth point, to underscore the helplessness of Nigeria's security system. Rather than abate, Islamist jihadist terrorists have become more vicious, ruthless, and indiscriminate, even abducting the district head of Daura, Alhaji Musa Uba, who is the husband to President Muhammadu Buhari's niece. So, we conclude and recommend thus. 1. We recommend that Nigeria be quickly fashioned into 2 regional constitutional jurisdictions, secular and Sharia constitutional jurisdictions, with a national referendum whereby different localities can choose to join either a secular or a Sharia constitutional jurisdiction. 2. We conclude that the federal government has over the years proved unable to substantially, effectively, and sustainably carry out its constitutional obligation of national security and welfare. Therefore, we recommend, and strongly so, that the legislative branch of government leads a constitutional amendment and the enactment of laws and their oversights concerning the following. 1. The abrogation of the Firearms Act 146 of the laws of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1990, and thus liberalize the licensure of individual weapons possession for the purpose of self-defense. 2. We recommend that the legislature also accentuates the complete devolution of power in respect of a return to the pre-1966 national regional arrangements of Nigeria. I repeat that we have an accentuation of the complete devolution of power in respect of return to the pre-1966 national regional arrangement of Nigeria, modified along ethnic compatibilities, after which the federal government should constitutionally and legally release the mandate to each region to fashion out its own internal security arrangements and strategies. Thank you.